First up is our approval of the agenda. Motion and support. Additions or deletions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Public comment. You have 5 minutes to address the board. Just give us your name, please.
Good morning. My name is Ed Woods, and I'm up for reappointment for Lifeways Board. I've been on the Lifeways Board over 25 years, and people ask me all the time, why do you keep doing this? Why do you keep trying to get reappointed to that board? Well, I have a mentally ill brother, and that's how I first got on the board. Actually, if I put his picture up on the TV screen, you probably would all recognize him as one of our community citizens who logs hundreds of miles walking from one end of town to the other during the day and collecting bottles. That seems to be the thing that he likes to do. But also, I have a lot of passion for this. I've held all the officer positions on the Lifeway Board, but I've also worked at the State Association. I'm on the National Council for Behavioral Health out of Washington, D.C. I'm one of their board members. But, you know, this saying is the older I get, it seems to me, the more it affects your family. A year ago last week, my nephew, who's 29 years old, took his life. And we didn't realize he was sick. And so this is something that just keeps continuing to evolve in my life, and it continues to be an important part of my life. And I would appreciate being reappointed to that board. So thank you. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. Any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to the minutes of the February 9th meeting. Looking for approval.
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion and support. Any corrections needed? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Minutes are approved. Appointments. I have a number of appointments this morning. First is the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. The first position is a county commissioner appointment. The current member is Chairman Shotwell, who is also the applicant. Motion and support. Any other nominations from the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Chairman Shotwell's name will be forwarded. We have two public members. The current members are Rodney Melling and Ted Hillary. They are both applicants. Are there any other nominations from the floor for either of those seats? Okay, have a motion and a support to fill the two positions with the two current members. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Economic Development Corporation, we have two seats expiring the same time. They're both public members. Robert Simmons and Phil Rosinski are the current members. They're also the applicants. Are there any other nominations from the floor? Hearing none, if we could have a motion and support. That's a new Robert's Rules thing must be there, John. We have a motion by John and a support by Julie. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Lifeways, we have three seats all expiring at the same time. The current members are Melissa Callison, Jeffrey Peterson, and Edward Woods, and those three are also the applicants. Are there any nominations from the floor? If not, if we could have a motion.
I move to forward the three names to the full board.
Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Those three names will be forwarded on. Next, we have the Veterans Affairs appointment. Earl Smith is the current member and also the applicant. Looking for a motion? Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carried. That name will be forwarded. Jury Board, it's a public member expiring in 2021, it looks like. It's a long appointment. This is a partisan seat. It's filling the Republican seat of Leanne Hildebrandt, who's left the state of Michigan, and the applicant is Wayne Prentice.
Support.
Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Lastly, we have the Community Corrections Advisory Board is the technical name of it. It's a district court rep. A employee left the court that was a member. I think it was Tammy Bates, or a different Tammy. This is Tiffany Scott, that's the current applicant, and I serve on the board, and Tiffany was supported by the board at our last meeting. So we'd be looking for a motion.
Move to forward Tiffany's name to the full board for jury board.
Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Tiffany's name will be forwarded on. I've caught them all. I think that's it. And we are down to the Conservation District biannual report. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Lori Fitzgibbons, for all of you who don't know me. I'm the district manager at the Jackson County Conservation District. Since last time, I think it was in September that I was here, there's a few things that we've done. Our fall tree sale last year, numbers keep going down for the fall tree sale. We make a couple $100, but we don't know if it's worth the work and the time, so we might be discontinuing that, like a lot of the other conservation districts throughout Michigan are doing. Tree sale right now is underway for the spring. Numbers, when I wrote this report, were lower, but they're about even to what they were last year, so that's good. Our fall conference this year was at Shanty Creek in Bel Air. Kenny Price, who is our board chairman, was voted out of 78 conservation districts in Michigan. He was voted district manager of the year, so that, or district board member of the year. So that was a pretty big deal for us. I went to the Consumers Energy Volunteer Fair, and there's a Lumen Christi Volunteer Fair that's coming up next week that we'll be attending to try to get people involved in our programs. The annual meeting banquet was very successful. We had 71 people there this year. Steve Noble and James Stovall were reelected to their seats. Laura Campbell from the Ag Ecology Department, Michigan Farm Bureau, was our speaker. We had a lot of positive comments about her speech, so she did a great job. Candace and I, she's my project manager, we did a recycling MRC, which is Michigan Recycling Coalition training in Waterford, a 3-day training. We finished that up in December, and I was lucky enough to be on the morning radio show, which, as you all know, I love speaking in front of people, so that was great because nobody was really looking at me. So that was, that we're trying to promote the tree sale. We'll see how that goes. I've had a couple people come in, so that's good. We sponsored a corn planter clinic at Butch Lincoln's farm. Usually it's a sprayer clinic. This year we had a speaker come in and just do a corn planter clinic. We had, in my report I put 70 participants. Apparently I don't count very well because there was 120 participants that were actually there. Some volunteer events that we had, we were part of the Great River Cleanup. We actually had a grant that, a volunteer grant, where we were able to give all the volunteers that were there, which were over 120, I think it was 100, maybe even 140 this year. We were able to give them waterproof phone cases that you can put around your neck, and we gave them all T-shirts with that grant. That grant was specifically just to thank volunteers for the work that they do for us. So we led a team also on that cleanup. And then we had our own cleanup along the Grand River between Dixon Road and Onondaga. We had about 8 volunteers on that. Adopt a Stream, we had about 8 volunteers for that in October also. And our winter stonefly hunt, which was scheduled for the end of January. I don't know if you've noticed, but we've had kind of a cold winter, so it was kind of dangerous. And we rescheduled 3 times, and each one was like sub-zero weather, and we had to cancel it. And we still haven't had it, and at this point I don't know if we can, because there's a certain time period you have to be in between for the emergence of the stonefly, so we might have missed it. We have 5 current grants. We're still working on the Upper Grand Bacteria Reduction Grant. That will expire in June. Hunter Access Program is still ongoing. We still have our property in at the very northern point of Jackson County, and the southern point. So that's still going well. MyCore grant, which is helping us with our Adopt-A-Stream program, buying more equipment and expanding the program. We're actually getting our own microscopes so we can do all the bug ID in-house now instead of having to go rent a lab. The volunteer grant I just explained, and then we got our CTI grant back. So we had just hired a new engineer at the beginning of January. And applications for potential grants, we did apply with 9 other conservation districts for the invasive species grant through the Michigan Department of Natural Resources. We just found out that we did not get that grant. They awarded 20 grants, and we were not one of them. The lead on that was Branch Conservation District. And then we applied for a pollution prevention grant through the DEQ. It's basically would help us with our recycling program, with money to purchase supplies such as recycling bins that we can put throughout the community, and money for more education in the schools. The recycling coordinator educator position that we have now, the girl who's doing it, Candace, was supposed to be here this morning. She wasn't able to make it. Her babysitter didn't show up. So she was going to explain all that to you, and she knows more about it right now than I do. But it's going well. Yeah, some upcoming events that we have, Adopt a Highway, April, July, and September. Project Red this year was moved from March until April because of the weather again. Last year it was freezing in March, and we had a lot of kids show up in sweatshirts, and it was kind of ugly. So we're hoping that April will be warmer. We're doing the Arbor Day celebration at Potter Park Zoo, and that's on April 24th, I believe, and then our Earth Day celebration in the park, that we have kind of the lead role in planning that this year. That'll be April 25th. Adopt-A-Stream for the spring is planned for May 2nd. Our native plant sale, we are again working with the Men's Garden Club and Master Gardeners, and we're going to be a part of the community plant sale on May 30th. Thank you. Thanks. Actually, we're doing it a little different this year. We're offering, trying to get a little bit more money for us. We offered pre-orders, so we'll see how that works. We'll be doing nitrate screening at that event. We had about 20 people last year who brought their water samples in and we had our MEP tech was there with her little test strips, and she just tested people's water while they were there. We have our summer conference, learning fair. This is all the summer stuff. Birds, Blooms, and Butterflies, Jackson County Fair, and then the Youth Jamboree at Lake Hudson Rec area that we went to last year. That'll be our second year that we're there. So that's about it. Do you have any questions? Sweet.
Commissioners, any questions of Lori? Julie?
Thank you, Lori. First of all, I just simply wanted to commend you for the interview on the radio. I did hear it.
Oh, that's
And you
great.
did a nice job. I was looking forward to getting the sense of your personality and humor coming out. But yeah, I thought that mix between you and Greg O'Connor would be interesting, and it was. So you did a nice job, and I assume that was the Farm Bureau sponsored
Yes.
a block of time. So I also appreciate Farm Bureau's willingness to collaborate with you and us in making sure the public was offered that information. My question for you is, if we have a constituent that has recycling questions, I would make the assumption that we would send them, I believe you said her name was Candace?
Yes, Candace.
Candace at your office would be the contact person for constituents?
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
And I should have brought some cards and stuff, but we're also in the process of doing a website, and we want to advertise the website. I mean, we want to put it on a billboard or on a bus or something, just because we're working on it where it's going to be everything recycling you can find on this website. Every place in Jackson that you can take recycling, the haulers that take recycling, what to recycle, what not to recycle, to try to get some of the contamination out that people are throwing in there. But if any questions, hard to recycle items, all that, we're trying to get on that website, and we're in the process of doing that right now. Candace is working. We're trying to get it linked through the county website, I believe, and we're just waiting on that. So.
Sarah?
Where do you get your forms for the tree sale? Because I haven't seen any floating around, and
I didn't bring any here
quite
this year.
frank, you know, I've gotten them from Eaton County, so, because they've been in my mailbox, you know what I mean? So I was just curious, I would like to
Okay,
purchase
no,
trees
we have
from
a-
our own conservation
That would be nice.
district.
We have a mailing list. We have like over 4,000 people on the mailing list now. You can call and get put on that list, or we're trying to, we spend thousands of dollars mailing them out. So we're trying to kind of maybe go email. So we're trying to kind of chop down the people on the mailing list and put them on an email address. So people are calling, we're emailing it, we can mail it to you. It's all on the website. Yeah. And I usually bring a pack here when I come, and I did not, but I will later today.
Further questions? Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the front of the court quarterly report. Sarah? Morning.
Good morning. Okay, first, I noticed right away that I had a typo on my report. For number one, the annual totals for the SCAO, it should be the 2014 annual report, not the 2013 annual report. I still can't convince myself that it's 2015 yet, so. In that category, we have several sections that I highlighted for you last year that I wanted to bring before you again this year. And one of the things that I found notable without individually going through each column is that a lot of the numbers have stabilized from last year. Last year, we saw a huge increase in a lot of the sections, and this year you see some of those numbers have stabilized back down, which is a good thing. In particular, our support reviews, we went in 2012 from completing 600 support reviews up to 800 in 2013, and then we stabilized back down to 647 this year. So we're starting to see that big push that we had last year to get rid of a lot of the backlog, a lot of the items that were hanging out there, getting them done, to now more of a more current workload that has stabilized a bit. So I'm anxious to see what the 2015 numbers are, but I would suspect that they're going to be more reflective of what the numbers are this year for those. Notably, the last three numbers on those columns for conciliations, customer service calls, and average hold times, those are actually good negative numbers. The fact that the conciliations are down 46% means that we've had that much of a reduction in the filings for divorces in our county. So that's actually a good thing for our society, in that we've had a decrease in complaints for divorce. Our customer service calls, those going down means that we're having less customer inquiries, which means we're educating our clients better, that they're having less issues, or that they're accessing our website or getting the information that they need without having to call as often. So that's a good thing that that number is going down. As well as our average hold time, looking that 2 years ago that our average hold time was almost 3 minutes, and we're down to an average hold time of 57 seconds, is a pretty fantastic reduction. So I'm very proud of our customer service staff in that regard. Moving on to the second section, which is our performance incentives. These are the numbers that affect our federal incentive monies. And you can see from the first two sections, we're doing great in those two. We've met the state goal, as well as, well, exceeded the state goal. The bottom two, which is the current support percentage, that's the amount of money that we collect on the current support. So if someone has a charge of $400 a month that they're supposed to pay, in this case, we're only collecting 65% of that amount. So it's based on the total number of charge or amount of charge versus the amount that we collect. The second one is the arrears case percentage, and that's the number of cases that we collect on the back child support or the arrearage. It's not the dollar amount that we collect, but the fact that on that case we collected some money towards arrears. And those are the two that we're focusing on this year as far as getting our percentages up, because we'd like to see those percentages go up significantly. Part of that is reflective of the support review process and making sure that our support orders are right-sized, because if we have support orders that are too high, we can't collect the amount that we're expected to collect if it's too high for the payer. And the other part of that is making sure that we are getting that money on arrears, so when we have people before us, we're making arrangements to get that back child support paid. Part of that is the arrears discharge program that I've talked about a few times, where payers that truly cannot pay their child support and the arrears are due the state of Michigan, we're getting that waived, we're getting that wiped out, so that'll affect that percentage as well. Moving on to number 3, the improvement goals. Just to follow up, we have accomplished two of our main goals, which was to have client appointments held within 48 hours. In the past, it was up to 2 weeks to get an appointment with caseworkers, and we now have a process where a client is going to get a call back within 48 hours. So we are happy that that has gone through and is implemented. And parenting time complaints are being processed within 5 business days, so we are happy to get that going. The 3 goals that are in progress right now, the support review is being completed within 60 days. We are so close to having that accomplished. I was hoping that by this report, I'd be able to say that we are there, but we're just not quite there yet. We are within 90 days, but we're not within 60 days yet, so we're close on that. We have started looking at the new reports that are available to us. Unfortunately, the system is going through a change right now, and a lot of the reports that we were going to use are now being removed and are no longer going to be available, so we're kind of back to the drawing board on that process. And we are working towards the enforcement matrix, and that's going to affect those 2, the support percentage and arrearage percentage, and getting those collected. So that's where we're at with those. Once we get those 3 goals completed, we'll be better able to look at the incentive factors, the 2 goals that I have that are in review. So we have to accomplish those hurdles first before we can take a look at how that's going to impact the incentive monies. Any questions?
Commissioner Duckham.
Nice report.
Thank you.
I have a question on the child support enforcement and the forgiveness on the other end for people who can't afford to pay. What's the criteria on that?
There's several items. Some of it is whether or not they have a lot of outstanding medical bills, if they have health issues that prevent them from work, if they have an extensive criminal background that prevents them from working, if they are currently taking care of the children that arrearage accrued under. We have a lot of situations where perhaps dad now has custody of the children, and at the time when he didn't, the support accrued and it charged to the state of Michigan, and so now he can't pay child support because he has the children and he's got to take care of them as well. And mind you, these are arrears that are due the state of Michigan. They're not due the other parent on the case. So it's not that it's money that should be going to another person. It would be going to the state of Michigan. And the state of Michigan has said that they want to wipe out those arrears, so it's not us doing it without their permission.
All right, thank you much. Appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Commissioners, any other questions of Sarah? Okay.
All right,
Sarah,
thank
thank you
you.
very much. Next up is the Youth Center Quarterly Report. Jeremy.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
At this meeting, I wanted to just kind of give some statistical review over the last 5 years of what our average and what our total numbers have been. As you see, in 2010, we had a total of 395 residents that came through our building. It jumped dramatically in 11, and then even more so in 12. We saw a dip in 2013, and then last year, for 2014, we had 410 residents come through the building, either on our detention or our residential program. In 2013, we were seeing a lot of needing to release basically when a resident came in the back door because they were either brought in from the court or from law enforcement, we were letting somebody out the front door because we were just at capacity. And so then we weren't seeing that a lot this year, which is a benefit because then that means that there hasn't been as much need for detention. And so I was really surprised after we ran the data that there wasn't that large of a difference between our amount of residents this year versus last year, 26 resident difference. But then we started looking at it a little further. 2013, we had a lot waiver youth. And again, those are youth that are being waived to the adult court, and their average stay for them is about a year. By the time they come into our facility, go through all the process to determine whether they're going to be waived or not. If it was a court-directed waive, or if it's a prosecutor-directed waive, then they're waived automatically. But through all the processes, usually takes about a year for a waiver resident to then find out what's happening, whether they're going to be sentenced as an adult or sentenced for long-term in juvenile court. When you have that many waivers, that takes up a large chunk of our space. And this year, in 2014, we've not had nearly as many waivers, so it has reduced the amount of long-term residents. And so that's one reason why we have not seen, our last priority release has been in July, which again, I don't like to have to release somebody if the court is saying that they need to be in our facility for a reason. I don't want to release them because we're getting somebody else in, most of the time more severe. So just wanted to talk about that a little bit. That being said, right now on detention, we've had seen lower numbers. Through the middle of last year, almost every single time I came here, I was talking to you that our average our detention population average was over our capacity of 24. So right now, our average has been about 17.6. One of the things that we've been able to do is really take some critical evaluation of how we are doing things. When you're running 100% for so long, you really can't step back and look at how you are doing and what you are doing. And so we've been able to do that these last couple months to go, okay, how can we be more efficient? How can we do a better job of making connections and lifelong changes within the youth that we do have? And so we're still working on that process. And specifically, we're looking within our treatment program because we're just simply not happy with our successes or lack thereof at how many kids that are graduating on the backside of our treatment program. So we're working through that, finding research is showing us that putting a lot more effort in trauma-informed care because of the life these kids have been going through, the stuff that they've experienced really impacts then their ability to make the connections between cause and effects. So we're trying to work on some of that brain work to help reignite the synapses. Is a lot of brainy stuff that I'm learning, and thankfully there's people a lot more smarter than me about that understand that stuff. So we had 73 admissions thus far for this year. In residential, we have there's been some changes since the submitting of this report. We have one graduation that we're getting ready to schedule. We have 2 youth that are going to homebound here. And again, that's integration back into their local school. They go home during the weekday, come with us on the weekend. As part of that transition, we have 2 additional referrals coming into our treatment program that are on the horizon as well. Almost every single time I'm talking to you about Youth Arts Alliance because we have seen such a dramatic benefit to our youth in being able to learn about and experience some of the creative arts outlet that they have been doing. And one of the things that we're amping up this year is we've partnered with the University of Michigan, their Graduate School of Music, Theater, and Dance. Their graduate instructor, Mr. Bolgreen, is coming here every Wednesday and then also has a graduate student that is coming with him on Wednesday night, and they're teaching music to our residential kids, how to play the guitar, keyboard, musical structure, how to write the lyrics and such. And so it's just really interesting to see the kids and how they are grasping on this and that additional skill that they are able to learn too. And so we really appreciate University of Michigan partnering with Youth Arts Alliance to then provide this opportunity for the youth. And then finally, I showed you a picture of the mosaic and listened to the audio of the song last time. We finally have the mural up, and so I wanted to include that you guys can see the mural that ended up being hung in our dining room there. Do you have any questions about any of this right now? I did, per your request last time, you've asked for continued updates and reports from Rise Above, so I did invite Neil Fernandez, the CEO of Rise Above, to come and report as well, but if you have any
Jeremy,
questions...
I've just got one question.
Yeah.
You've mentioned waivers in here, and that you've got 3 waivers so far this year, up through the 25th of February. Is that a number that would be easy to incorporate in the report to give historical to it also for previous years? How many waivers you've had through the years?
Yeah, I'll have to, I will look at that.
Yeah,
And
just in future reports, I think
Yep.
it'd be beneficial to know that, especially historically, what we've had.
will do.
Commissioners, any other questions on the report so far? Mike?
Jeremy, could you share with the board what happens upon release of your student?
For just a normal or a residential or...
Residential,
Okay.
but you can do either one
Yeah,
or
yeah,
both,
yeah.
so they have a sense of, I mean, we all have a sense of why they're there, how they got there, but what happens after the fact?
Yeah. So the detention is a little different than residential. The detention kids, those are generally kids that are either being placed for a short period of time to either probation officers may be doing a home study to figure out what's going on in the home, may just need to remove that resident, that youth, because of things going on, or it may also be then a short-term consequence for the behaviors, for their delinquent behavior. So those, again, our average stay for that is about 18 days. That does include some of the long-term waivers, so that's skewed a little bit. So when they return home, they're really under the heading and the authority of then the probation officer to comply with any of their probation guidelines and rules and expectations of probation. At that point, if they violate their probation, then there will be an additional pickup order, or that then the youth would then be brought back into us if it depends on the severity of the violation. The residential kids, those are the kids that we are responsible for, the youth center piece of it. And so as kids, as they go to the outside of, or the end part of the treatment, they end up having the opportunity, as I said, for the homebound, they live at home during the week. On the weekend, they come stay with us. And then aftercare, they're home fully while being monitored by our staff. So I have 2 staff that directly oversee the aftercare part. They go check on them during the day at school. They will go check on them at night to make sure they're meeting curfew. Part of the aftercare is also working with them, trying to get them involved with community service as well as then job. And so especially my evening aftercare supervisor will oftentimes take them from place to place, filling out applications. We work with what does an interview look like and do mock interviews with them as well. And then if they're not able to get a job right away, we're also then getting them lined up with doing community service. Part of that is just a requirement of our program as well, but we also don't want to have that downtime for them too. So if they're not able to work or they're not involved in extracurricular activity, we have some kids that are able to get onto the sports teams and do a very nice job with that. Again, trying to not have a lot of that downtime. And then eventually they will then, if they complete the aftercare piece, then they'll be close to the court's jurisdiction.
Thank you, Jeremy. I just want everyone to realize, I guess I have a soft spot for this whole program, frankly, but it's more often than not, these kids are getting more parenting from Jeremy and his staff than they ever do or have at home, which is evident in why they're there to begin with.
It's interesting that you say that part. Just last week, sad, but just last week, we end up, yearly, we get a phone call from a young man on his birthday. His parents, one parent is incarcerated and his other parent has since died. And he will call us every year on his birthday to give us a heads up and catch up on what he's been doing. But for the most part, he wants somebody that has shown care and concern for him for many years, because unfortunately he was with us for a long time, on his birthday, so that somebody is making that acknowledgement. But just last week we got that phone call from him, and I think he's 21 now. So that's been happening for years.
Very good.
So here's Neil.
Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you. for having me back to talk about our new nonprofit here in Jackson called Rise Above. To date, we've started our operations on January 5th. We have 4 core programs at Rise Above, located at 936 Fleming, which is right next to the JCYC building. Our first program is a Reading Aloud program, which currently hasn't started, but is just in the development phase with Jeremy, where we will actually be doing a reading and writing program with students that focuses on literacy, phonics, those sorts of things. We have our alternative suspension and expulsion program, which is our Crossroads program, which has garnered a lot of support from community members, businesses, individuals, and from the youth center. What it does basically is works with the high schools in the community and takes those students that would have otherwise been suspended or expelled at home, and we give them a place to come and to do their work while they're expelled or suspended. As well, with a focus on what you were just talking about, we really focus on relationship as a means to help bridge the gap for the student in the school, the community, and the family. And as a testimony to that, I will share with you real quick something a parent just shared with me, who has a young lady that she's been struggling with for over 2 years through expulsions, suspensions, things at home. Just about 3 weeks ago now, she called, and her daughter's been in our program for 6 weeks, so 3 weeks in, and said, unrelated, she says, "Neil, I just want to call and say thank you." And I said, "Oh?" And she went on to say that, for the first time in 2 years, my daughter and I sat down and had dinner together, and we had a real conversation. She said, "I see her come home from your school, Rise Above, excited. I see her wanting and excited to go back to school. I see her engaging her academics on her own in her room." And she said, "Neil, thank you for giving me my daughter back." And that in itself is based on the fact that we focus on the relationship first and helping them to bridge that gap. We have a full-time certified teacher on staff. We have a full-time certified counselor on staff, as well as a myriad of volunteers and mentors that come in and help us. We also believe in the arts side of things. We have an arts therapy program once a week. Our day is structured that we have class in the morning, we have a life skills in the middle of the day just before lunch, and then we have class again in the afternoon. The life skills focuses on a couple of different things. Focuses on things like the arts program that we have, and as well as job skills. We have a third program which focuses on entrepreneurialism. It's called Success is Building. And what I will actually do, and we're already talking with the students about this because it's a mentorship as well as a partnership with them, is we actually start for-profit businesses with these students. Part of this life skills time that we do is we actually show them how to do resumes, which is a lot of the programs in the county do for youth, but we actually make it functional. We don't just show them how to do it, we then apply it. So although they're building the program with me in the actual businesses, they actually have to use the resume that they've built with us and go through an interview process and apply for the job once they've created the business with me. So it's a partnership in the sense that they will profit from it, as well as it's part of our sustainability model long-term for Rise Above. So that's an amazing thing that has garnered a lot of support as well. Actually having a local entrepreneur come in today to talk about seed money for that, as well as some significant business ideas that he wants to share with us in partnership with Rise Above in the coming weeks. As well, we have a volunteer faith-based element that we engage our students with that want to come in. And so far, we have 100% participation in that by our students. It's completely volunteer. They don't have to stay. The students or the parent decide if the student's going to stay. And we had 2 students halfway through that originally didn't sign up that were like, actually, I want to be involved. So they had to go and ask their parents how they would do that. So thankfully, it's another way we've bridged the gap of relationship with these students. So I just want to thank you for your support to Rise Above and allowing us to occupy the building at 936 Fleming. It has been a blessing to us, to the students, and I'm sure going forward it will continue to be a blessing to this county and to the students that we serve. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Neil. Any questions, commissioners? Thank you. Thanks, Jeremy. Next up, the Sheriff's Communications Tower lease with Consumers Energy, under Sheriff Cool.
Good morning.
Morning.
We're looking for approval here to lease tower space or to co-locate on a Consumers Energy tower in Tompkins Township. Although we do not physically have the lease in front of us, I was under the impression that Consumers Leasing Department would be finalizing it last week. I'm hopeful we can have a copy of it here very soon. Certainly, we are not intent on signing it until County Administration and Legal has had a chance to review that lease. The lease obviously is to co-locate communications equipment for our radio system on that tower. It is a very high tower. They have offered space available to us above the 300-foot range, which is obviously very, very ideal. It is my impression that they do not allow co-location on their towers. They took some convincing and significant talks to allow us to do this. The lease price is a bargain, to say the least, $75 a month. There is an increase in that. I do not recall whether it was year 4 or 5, but it's capped at $125 a month. So either way, still a very advantageous location and price. So we're hoping to get the approval for this lease. Obviously, there's a number of things for this tower site that are subordinate to this approval, such as the FCC, licensing of the transmission point, construction tickets for underground electrical, things like that. So that is why we're here, hoping we can get that approval to move forward with this lease when it is presented to us physically.
Under Sheriff, I think I talked with the administrator about it this morning, and it actually needs to go to the full board. I think we can certainly approve sending it on to the full board. And you would assume I assume the lease would be done in time for next Tuesday's meeting, so it could be included in the packet then, or?
I am very hopeful, but we are at the will of Consumers Energy's leasing department.
Okay. And then the additional questions I had of the administrator this morning, with the 911 study, and one of the issues raised is the radio system in the county. Just as one commissioner, I'm a little apprehensive to make a huge investment in the radio system until we know for sure what we're going to do long term. This lease, $75 a month, is not much, and I'm appreciative of Consumers for that. If we were to move forward with the lease and with the equipment on it, do you know what the investment would be, just ballpark, to do that? And would it be moving equipment from another location here or new equipment?
Both. We have current equipment in reserves, what we call our critical spares, for equipment that goes down, so we're not waiting, weeks and days for things, if it's hit by lightning, to come in. So we have a inventory of what we call critical spares. There's some equipment that's going to be moved. Originally, I think we had talked about in some chiefs meeting that the initial thought was to move the Springport location up there, but in conversing with ROCOM, if we take Springport's location down, it'll take them approximately 4 days to bring this tower online, assuming we had everything in place, electricals there, et cetera. It'll take them 4 days for tower climbers to hang equipment, et cetera. That region would be without service. That is not advantageous. So some of the equipment that we're going to put up there will be new. Some of it is what we have in reserves. As far as a financial investment, we're talking approximately $15,000. That is all things considered, such as the Consumers Energy underground wiring, the building, the fencing, and equipment on the structure. That would be with the equipment we have to purchase outright. I understand about the current situation of 911 in the study. However, based on this location and the minimal cost, we're not building a new structure, so there's not a significant financial investment. And as I understand it, Consumers Energy does not necessarily care what we have up there. Anytime you hang equipment on a tower, there has to be a study done by the FCC and the Michigan version, something on the Public Service Commission, because everything has to be balanced on the tower. They have to know what's going on what side, and they make sure the structure can hold that equipment. If you recall, about 1.5 years ago, we had a lease in front of you for Enbridge Oil Corporation on West Michigan Ave. That tower did not pan out because we had a study done, and they found their structure to be deficient to support our equipment. So we got them in a little bit of trouble, but they were okay with it. So we moved forward and found this location. So there are a number of things that are going to go into play there. There is a financial investment. It would not be significant in the total grand scheme of things, because if you are considering long-term about an infrastructure investment in a new radio system, certainly there's some issues there with the surcharge, and there's obviously whether that needs to be raised, and there's obviously timeframes when that can happen, and realistically you're talking probably years before a radio system can be rolled out once you consider all of the FCC applications, bandwidth spectrums to apply for, and what you're granted, et cetera. So, in the near term, this is a solution for that portion of the county without a monumental investment.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that we should stop doing everything in the radio system. We can, obviously.
Understood.
But I just was curious the amount of investment if we approve the lease, and that actually would come back to us individually, I assume, correct, for that other work to move a tower on, or would it not?
I'm sure I don't understand your
Well,
question.
if we approve the lease, would you then begin the process of moving the equipment or setting up to have everything done then, or not?
Well, yes, we would begin that process, but there's a number of things we need to do first, such as the FCC authorization to transmit, which is not a huge deal. If we're not applying for a new license, we're simply wanting to move a transmission point within our current service geography to another point, which they don't have an issue with. We've done it before. You get hemmed up in all of the issues when you apply for new frequencies because we're so close to Canada.
Okay. So if I understand it right, we'd be looking for a motion to move the issue onto the full board of the lease with consumers, and hopefully the lease itself will be done in time to include it with a board packet for review.
And also understanding that the administrator's office and/or legal counsel would be reviewing it as well.
I think that was in the document that we got. Call me anal, but I like to review the contracts, and hopefully we'll have it before the board meeting, so.
I'll make that motion.
Motion and support. Questions or additional comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thanks, Undersheriff.
Thank you.
J.C. Dot, we've got, looks like 4 items. The first is the approval of the site plan for the Summit Pines condominium, Section 4, Summit Township.
Yep, it's the, Jack Rister did the engineering drawings. It's in the 2100 block of Spring Arbor Road on the north side. And looked over the plans, review fees are paid, and recommend approval of the site plan. Very nicely done.
Any questions from the commissioners? If not, we'd be looking for a motion. Motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Joe?
Well, the next one is the approval of the MDOT contract between the Jackson County Department of Transportation and MDOT for the Hague Avenue Bridge over the Grand River. Pretty typical of all of our federal aid projects, where they explain what the local bridge program is going to pay for, and then what the match is for the local agency. And in this case, it's a pretty good deal, where they pay 95% and our match is only 5%. So bridges are a really nice thing.
Okay, we'd be looking to send this on to the full board. Motion and support. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Joe?
And then we have a abandonment in Norville Township. We had a couple of them there in the January meeting, and this one, it's off of Shady Lane there, Section 33 in Norville Township. We looked it over. The petition has been submitted. Verified the signatures, filing fee's been paid, and it's not going to landlock anybody, and the township incorporated all of this person's lots. He owns 5 or 6 of them, and they incorporated them into one parcel, which eliminated the chances of anybody being landlocked. So that being said, everything looks good, and I recommend approval of this abandonment in Norville Township.
Looking for a motion to send to the full board. Motion and support. Questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Joe?
And the last one is the award of our RFP for the West Michigan Avenue Bridge. We received award of that. It's capped at about $3.4 million. It's the one in Parma there, just going out by the village. Goes over the railroad tracks and a village street, so it does have a lot of things going on with it. We had a mandatory pre-bid meeting before the proposals were finalized and submitted, and so all of the consultants that attended that pre-bid meeting were allowed to submit a proposal. So 4 of the 5 were eligible to do that, and we received those 4. And Brechting Bridge, when we looked it all over, seemed to be the most responsible bidder, and I've listed them task by task for each part of it, some of the comments for each individual consultant, and I wanted to make a recommendation to Frank Brechting. He's doing the Hague Avenue Bridge for us, and then he also did the Cross and Warner Road bridges that we constructed last year. And he's also done a bridge in Calhoun County, so he's familiar with the two of us.
I'm glad we've got that history because it's quite a gap in the bids.
Yes.
But we do have that history, and you've been satisfied with our work before.
Yeah, he's very, very capable.
Commissioners be looking for a motion to send it to the full board. Motion and support, questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Joe, I think that's it for you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. That's it for our committee items. Next, we have claims. Be looking to pay the bills.
Pay the January claims?
Motion and support, questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. We have the other minutes in the April reporting schedule, and we're back to public comments. Comment? Question? No. Okay, public comments. Hearing none, we're down to committee member comments. Still hearing none. We're adjourned.